close to death, was terrified. Okay.
Okay, good morning, gentlemen. Our learning sponsors, the Year of Learning Friends of Malaskotsky, Moshe Zelig, Ben Mordechai, Martin Lippman and family, in memory of his wife, Malka Chana Bar Pinchas, Friends of Herb Jeremiah, Tzvi Ben Zed, Friends of Sam Coleman, Shimon Ben Yaakov, Friends of Gideon Lazinski, Mordechai Shlomo Ben Meir, Bella and David Adler, in memory of her father, Eliel Ben Yosef Cohen, those who were inspired by our Rebbetzin Emerita, Sheila Shapiro, Sarah Estamalka Bad Meshulam Yisachar, Gail and Leslie Kaplan, in memory of their parents, Mushka Sprinzer Bad Yosef Chaim Bechava, Hanan Ben Moshe Eliezer Vachana, Pesha Bad Shmuel Yitzchak Alevi Vitzipora, Yisra Ben Yoam Moshe Cohen Vachana, Rexford Friends of Gladys Sherman, Gutta Bad Meir, Michael Klein and Friends of Judah Klein, Yehuda Tzvi Ben Chaim, Marsha Braun, in memory of her husband, Harav Yerachmiel Ben Shmuel. A Month of Learning by Charlie Gelfenstein, in memory of his mother, Dacia Gilbert Meir Halevi. Charlie Gelfenstein again, in memory of his father, Meir Ben Yaakov. Ruvain and Susan Podolsky, in memory of his mother, Fredel Bashraga Feivel. A Week of Learning, Marsha Federbush, in memory of her father, Menachem Mendel Ben Shlomo. Friends of Bernie Kurtz, on the occasion of his second bar mitzvah. There is no individual days of, today's the 23rd, right? Yeah, no individual days of learning. I want to
just preface one thing, which is important. In this long discussion of whether so one person benefits and the other person doesn't lose, whether the person who benefits has to pay, we keep using the lashon shalomi daita, without the knowledge of the owner. So the question is without the knowledge really mean that? We just say without the knowledge really means that without his permission, so to speak, or something, but it doesn't mean it. So really, it's Rashi. It really looks like an argument between Rashi and Tosfos. So Rashi seems to say that without the knowledge is really a prerequisite. And why is that? So they explain that, just so we understand it. So we could say no, but simply to read it the way it is, and it looks like Rashi, it would be like this: that when a guy goes into a guy's place, where the guy is, let's say, not renting, whatever, but once the guy knows that the guy who goes in really accepts the fact that he might have to pay, so it's already like he acquiesced to pay. So we can use the language lomi daita. Really, it's a criteria. It has to be lomi daita, because we daita already. Then the guy went in, even though the owner didn't lose, he's already agreed to pay. Okay, so now we're going to continue. Yeah. So now we're going to continue in this massive and monumental argument. Okay, and that is, we say the following.
Where are you up to?
I'm going to tell you exactly. We go exactly 13 lines from the bottom on Chaf Amud Beis. Exactly 13 lines from the bottom. Go to Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Okay. No, we go to 14 lines from the bottom. Itmar. Just the 3 words for the other line. 14 lines from the bottom. Itmar. We learn. Continuing, we were listing different opinions in this thing. So we say Itmar. We learn Rav Kahana, Rabbi Yochanan. They said they held in the famous argument that all these cases where this one benefits and this one doesn't lose. He says what? He doesn't have to pay. Rabbi Avo or Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Avo said the name Rabbi Yochanan, you do have to pay. Amar Papa says, listen, watch out. He says, be careful. All the Rabbi Avo, when Rabbi Avo said that Rabbi Yochanan holds that you have to pay, he says, Rabbi Yochanan never said that explicitly. It was only taught. We know that it was really what happened was Rabbi Avo inferred it from something that happened. Rabbi Yochanan never said it. Don't watch out. Don't swallow this so quickly. I don't know that Rabbi Yochanan holds that you have to pay. Why is that? Because I don't know that. I don't know that Rabbi Yochanan really said it. That Rabbi Yochanan said no. He quoted Rabbi Yochanan saying you do have to pay. But Rabbi Papa is saying, listen, I don't know. Maybe he really holds enough to pay. It's not necessarily true that he holds you have to pay. Why? Take a look, because read this. Look at the story, and you have to. In general, you have to. This is a very, very, very important principle. We have a similar principle called says "Ein lemeidim min ha'maisa." Ironically, you can't learn from an incident. Okay, why is that? Because when somebody does something, you don't know why they've done it. You understand? You don't know why they did it. You're going to assume that they did this because of the reason you thought. And that's Allah. Maybe they did it for a whole different reason. I was once with my Rebbe of blessed memory. I don't know, they changed the laws later, but all those years in the Western Wall was always full of many, 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 many people collecting tzedakah. At the time, if you would go for a single davening, you would have 15, 20, 30 people approach you for for a donation. Baruch Hashem, people collecting money. So I remember one time I was at the Koso with my Rebbe and another student, another friend of mine. And we were there, and this one came, that one came. Each one my Rebbe gave money to. And then these two guys came, and he gave them, it looked like 2, 3, 4, 5 times what he gives everybody else. So we figured this must be a very worthy cause. So my friend and I ran back after these guys to give them some money. We didn't even know, we hadn't given them any. We ran to, must be, my Rebbe gave them 2, 3, 4 times whatever it was, the amount must be very important. We run to give them money. We come back. My Rebbe's laughing. He says, "Oy vey, oy vey." He says, you think I give them money because they deserve it? He says, I give them money because they slander me. He says, these guys, he says, but I'll pay them off. So there's a rule, even from an action. You don't know. You watch the great rabbi do X or Y, Z. You don't know why he did it. You think it's the reason you thought. Maybe it's another reason entirely. So that's number one. And number two, also, and this is another point we hear where sometimes it's not exactly the same point, but this is called mechala. The listener from an event drew a conclusion, and the Gemara say it's not necessarily true. Let's hear what was the story. Let's see what happened. Here's the story. The Tanan we learned in the Mishnah. Okay, not the. Maybe we should explain one thing outside. I'll be inside. The Gizbar, who's the treasurer, let's say the collector for the Beis Hamikdash, his domain is like the Beis Hamikdash's domain. So there's a thing called me'ila. Me'ila is misappropriation. When you're going to take illegally what belongs to Hegdesh, it's harder for him to do misappropriation than for other people. Why? Because his pocket is really the pocket of the Beis Hamikdash. So here is a classic example. The Tanan Kosi learned. Not all this treasurer, Evan Okara Mishal Hegdesh, he took a stone or a beam from Hegdesh, and by mistake, thinking that it says, he was wrong. He thought it says. Harry Zelo Mal, he didn't do misappropriation. Why? Because since his pocket is the pocket of Hegdesh, but he hasn't taken it yet. He hasn't done any act of a kinyan. He didn't change it into a kin. So he hasn't done a misappropriation. Okay, but the son of Lechaberu, if he gave it to his friend, Humal, then the treasurer has already done misappropriation. Why? Because he transferred it to another domain. Now, okay, but Chaver Lomo and his friend did not do misappropriation. Furthermore, we learn, let's say he built it into his house without changing it. Because we make a change to something to your turn. How can you build it into your house without changing it? We'll see. Like for example, we're going to see in a minute. But like he put it on top of the skylight. Okay, block the skylight. So now it's going to protect his produce from the rain. So Hari Zelo Ma'al, he still hasn't done misappropriation because he didn't change it. Until he lives under it, so to speak, gets benefit to the value of a pruta, to minimum value. Shmuel, what's the case? Like I said to you, that's because he put it on the skylight and it protects his fruit. And so the point is what? So since he didn't build it in, didn't change anything, but he gets the benefit. That's when he did it. Now,
once he put the grains,
once he benefited, right? Then that's sufficient that he actually benefited. Now, here, take a look. 1 second. Now, isn't this an interesting case? What is it? Look, he benefited from Hegdesh, okay, and Hegdesh, so to speak, didn't give him permission or doesn't know, okay, because in fact he thought it's his own thing. The Yossi Rabbi Bo made Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Bo was sitting in front of Rabbi Yochanan. But Kamar Mishmei de Shmuel, Rabbi Bo said in the name of Shmuel in front of Rabbi Yochanan, Zosa Meres, from the fact that what? The fact that we learned that when he benefits from Hegdish without Hegdish's knowledge, okay, for one fruit that he has to pay, and Hegdish hasn't lost anything. Why? Because the stone's the stone. Nothing changed. So when a person lives in his friend's courtyard, his friend's house, without his knowledge, he has to pay him, even though his friend hasn't lost anything. So he's concluding, according to this Mishnah, like the opinion that what? The guy who gets benefit, this one didn't lose, has to pay. Okay, and Rabbi Yochanan was silent. Okay, now when a person's silent, you don't know what that means. You saw who reported what the Rabbi Yochanan said that you do have to pay. He thought that what be the shosik from the fact that Rabbi Yochanan was silent. Modele, he agreed, he accepted it. Silence was acquiescence. But he was wrong. It's not true, says Rav Papa. It's not true.
How much do you have to pay based upon what he usually gets, the guy?
Yeah, it's not here again, but that's usually you reevaluate. Usually, yes. Okay.
He took it from temple treasury.
Yes, and he didn't realize it. He thought it was his. He took a rock that belonged to the temple treasury, but he thought it was his. He's mistaken. He thinks it's his.
But it has to
They
be.
took it from Home Depot.
Yeah, well, wherever it was, but wherever it was, somebody donated. It belongs to the temple, right? He did it. He thought it was his own thing. Okay, now the Lohi. Okay, but he was wrong. Why? Why was he wrong in concluding that Rabbi Yochanan's silence was acquiescence? He was beneath him. He gave it no value whatsoever. It wasn't worth answering. Okay, Kedarabba, why? Why is that? Because it was so obviously wrong. Like Rabba taught us, Rabba told us, Hegdesh Shalomi Das. Hegdesh without knowledge, is like a normal person with knowledge. God knows everything. So there's never a case where you can take the base of English thing without knowledge. Why? Hashem always knows. He says there was no comparison. Now, Shalech Le Rab Abba Bar Zabdi Lemari Bar Mar. He wanted to ask this. He said, listen. He said, go ask Rav Huna. Please go ask Rav Huna. What's the halacha in our famous debate? If a guy lives in his friend's courtyard without permission, they have to pay or not. But before he got to ask him, Rav Huna died. Okay, but nevertheless, what? Amarle Rabba Bar Rav Huna, but he said what? But his son, he has a son. So the son told him, he said, no, the son of Rav Huna told him, this is what my father, my teacher, what he said. This is what he said in the name of Rav. And it's you don't have to pay. Now listen to it, but he said it also the second halacha, which seems to contradict. He said what? You get benefit with the guy didn't lose, you don't pay. If a guy rented a house from Ruvain, Shimon, he has to pay Shimon rent. What are you talking about? Shimon Ma'avita, what's Shimon doing there? He rented. If I rent the house from Ruvain, why am I paying Shimon? The answer is Hachi Kamar. This is what it says. What does it mean? Obviously, he meant to say what? Nimtza Abayah Shimon. If you rent a house from Ruvain, and Shimon doesn't know, and it turns out to be Shimon's house, Malo you have to pay him. The Gemara says, Tarte, wait a second, that's self-contradictory. Okay, you told me that you don't have to pay when the other guy when the guy didn't lose and he doesn't know, and now you told me that I do have to pay. He says no. He says don't worry. Oh, the kaimela agra. When we said the second halacha that if you rented for Reuben you have to pay Shimon. Why? Because Shimon's house was up for rent. So of course you have to. That's not a loss. That's not no loss. That's a loss. The first opinion that we said you don't pay is what? Remember, there's really no loss. The courtyard wasn't up for rent. Itmar Nami was also taught that way. Different opinion, same point. We learn here the following same thing. We would have a good repeat of what we just learned. There are two halachas were said which apparently contradict. First, we learned the guy lives in his friend's courtyard without his knowledge, and it's you don't have to pay rent. And then we said what appears to contradict. Bias me b'nei year. A guy rented a house from the city people. The city itself rented, thinking there's no owners. Malaschal Balim has to pay the owners. If the city people rented it, they own it. Why are you paying the owners? What's going on? Achikamar, this is what it meant to say. Same thing. Nimtzu Lobalim, the city people rented it, but it turned out they're owners. Malen Loschar, you have to pay the owners. Tarti, it's the same thing. It's a repeat of the previous Gemara. What do you mean? It's self-contradictory. First you told me what? That you don't have to pay rent when the guy doesn't know and doesn't lose. And now you told me what? You do have to pay. Don't worry, hard the kaimel agra. The second halacha that you have to pay is because it was really up for rent. The hard low kaimel agra. The first case is where it was not up for rent. It's no loss. Amrav Shom Rav Hun Amrav Adaber Chatzach Aveiro Shalom Idaito. He says what? The same classical halacha. Okay, in a classical case, you don't have to pay. Why? Now, but this is interesting. We're going to add that in addition to the reasoning that you don't have to pay because the guy didn't lose, there's another reason why you really shouldn't pay. Now, there's an argument whether it's just nice or really this is a reason. We're going to read it like it's nice. Okay, there's a second way to read it. In other words, in addition to the fact that you really don't have to pay him legally, there's another reason why you shouldn't have to pay him. Why? Yeah, you're doing the guy a favor. Why is that? Because you're protecting his house. Because we learn there's also two ways to read it. I'm going to read it one way. Mishum shenemar u'she'iyah yukas shar. Shia is a demon, a damaging spirit. Okay, well that will destroy. He destroys the house. He destroys the gate. He destroys the house. So when a house is abandoned, it gets destroyed by demons. So by living there, he's actually doing in addition, he's doing the guy a favor, protecting the house from being destroyed by bad spirits.
So the other guy should pay him.
It's a very good
Well,
point.
he
That's a,
does,
one
but
second.
that
No,
is-
that's a very good point. It's a very good point. Should be discussed. Amar Marbra, we have to see. We have to have a whole discussion of what types of things you can charge for. Well, Amar Marbra Rabashi says, well, Didi Chazal, he says, you know what? He says, I actually saw that spirit. He gores like an ox. Rav Yosef, he says also a similar point, but a little different. He says what? Beisa miyatba Yosef, a house that is occupied is indoors. What do you mean to say? Because listen, whenever a guy lives in a house, here when you have somebody living there, they see a little crack, they fill it, they see a little. Naturally, a person living in a house always he does a little upkeep. So now, so the only thing is my being. So what's the difference? Because both of them are protecting the house. One is protecting it from the shade, from the demon, and one is to protect is doing upkeep. The answer is the answer is let's say the owner uses it as a storehouse for wood or for straw. No, so what's the point? In the case of what in the case of wood or straw, the house is not abandoned, so we don't worry about a demon. But he's not. But upkeep, nobody's upkeeping it because nobody lives there. So that's the difference. In one case, if the reason is upkeep, the first case, if the case is upkeep, the fact that he uses it for storehouse, he's still in need. But if you hold that the reason is only because of the demon, the second the guy is using it as a storehouse, there's no demon problem.
Is it possible that he has to pay him the regular fee minus what the improvements?
So I tried to
actually
say, since it's not on the page, I'm not going to answer you, but we have to discuss all kinds of intangibles or questions of what we charge and if we charge. That's not here, but it's that we can discuss. Who governed the bana apadna? Akil kalta liasme. A certain guy built a mansion on a dump belonging to orphans. So they were never going to build one. It wasn't up for building. They were using it. It's a dump. It's a trash heap.
No,
Okay. Yeah.
there were people living there.
No, wait. You're ahead of me. You're ahead of the Gemara. Okay. See, he placed it. Wasn't for building. So Rav Nachman said, "Listen, I'm taking your mansion until you go pay the orphans. You owe them." I says the Gemara, Rav Nachman. So does that mean that Rav Nachman really held that what when you get benefit when the other guy doesn't use, you have to pay? Gemara says, okay. Gemara says, no, it's not true. Why? Because the case isn't what you think. You thought the case was what where it's not up for building, up for living. There are people who live there, merchants and tents, who paid a very, very small amount to the orphans. And therefore what? They paid a little bit, but that little bit is enough to make it as if it's up for rent. It's up for building, even a little bit. It doesn't matter. Okay, and therefore what? And once it's up for rent, so if they built, it's not called that he didn't lose, that the orphans didn't lose. They did lose, and therefore Amar Lei. Okay, Zil Paisin Liasmi. So he said, go and make amends with the orphans. Yeah, come to an agreement. And the guy didn't listen. Rav Nachman took his mansion away from him until he, withhold it until he paid the orphans. Right. Now, I want to explain something. We opened in a Mishnah. This Rashi in this sugya is confusing, because when the Mishnah told us that, look, when Shane eating in the public domain is exempt, okay, then we said what? So if an animal eats in the public domain, it only pays masha nehenes. It pays anyway the free meal, but it doesn't pay the damage. Then we said, but if it eats so if it eats from the street, it pays what it benefited, but not the damages, because damages are exempt of eating in the public domain. But if it eats from the side, it pays what it damages. When we read the Mishnah, we said what? We called that Karen. We called that goring. But Rashi is something really mashma. Also, we have two versions of Rashi. One question is, why when he eats from the side does he pay the damages? We learned, because it's a weird thing to do. And if the animal's going to go and eat from the side, that's a weird thing to do. So it'll have the laws of goring. The first 3 times half damages, and after he's been warned, on the 4th time he'll pay full damages. But there's another way to learn it, which is like this. We say, why is it that when he eats in the street that he's exempt? Because that's a public domain. From the psukim, we learn that eating in the public domain is exempt. Okay, is exempt. But we could say the other way. Now, when it eats from the side, why does it pay what it damages? We could say it really is paying the damages of eating. Why is that? because he said, you know what? On the sides, the guy had a right to put his. He couldn't put his produce in the middle of the public domain. That's public domain. Okay, he had a right, but he had a right to put it on the side. If he had a right to put it on the side, and the animal eats from the side is really what, like the private domain, like the domain of the damagee. You have to pay for eating. That's an alternative way. So now this whole sugi we could really read two ways all the time. I'm not going to do it, okay, but you can do it, okay, if you do it. But I'm just going to do it simply now and make believe that the whole time that the obligation on the side is always for goring, okay, because it's weird, But you should know that the other way to read it is that the side is essentially it's eating and it's the domain of the damagee. But I'm not going to do that. But he'll pay full damage. Yeah, he'll pay full damages.
So when
Exactly.
you say he eats from the middle, it doesn't belong to anybody? Is that what he's saying?
No, it's not that it doesn't belong to anybody. It's in the middle. The Torah, when the pasuk said "Ubir b'steyachin," the pasuk says, when does the guy have to pay for his animal eating? When it ate in somebody else's domain, somebody else's field. So since the public domain is not his field, he's exempt. The Torah says you have a right to take your animal. If you put your stuff in the public domain, the guy eats it. It's tough luck. Tough luck. Exactly. So now Gemara says, now let's return to the Mishnah. We said, the Mishnah said, what? How does it go? How do we figure this whole thing out? What's the circumstances? You pay what you benefited, i.e., you're exempt on damages when you eat from the middle of the street. Okay, but when you eat from the side of the street, you have to pay the damages. We said why? Because that's weird, and that's going to be goring half or whole accordingly. Amar Rav, we get ready. Migmach Lokitz. Amar Rav, when we said that you have to pay, that you pay for the sides, Rav said it's where the animal turned its neck around and ate abnormally from where? From the side. It's walking down the middle and it turns to eat from the side. That's abnormal. You have to pay as for goring. Okay, for goring in the public domain, which is eating, but it's goring. He says, no, Nami Potter. Even if the animal turns its head to the side and eats from the side, it's still exempt. That's still not considered a weird action, and it's still what? Eating the public domain is exempt. Okay, also 1 second. How does Shmuel, what cases in the Mishnah does Shmuel find that he has to pay the Mechayev? When does he pay? When is he obligated? The answer is the Shabakta l'Rechava v'Asla v'Kama b'Tzida Rechava. He says no. You know what's strange? Strange is when it gets up and it walks to the side. That's Karen. It's turning to the side. That's normal. It's exempt. Walking to the side and eating, that's already Karen, and you have to pay. All right, now so good. So now we understand. We read it simply. That's Machlokes of Rav and Shmuel. Rav says what? It's already Karen if it just turns and eats from the side, a side, not in the middle of the street. And Shmuel says no, it's not strange until he walks out of on the side.
Second version of Rashi works better.
Well, the truth is that I spent a long time this morning going back and forth. I think we can argue strongly for both. To tell you the truth, and honestly, I had a big debate with myself.
From the side, usually, if he doesn't walk there.
No, he turns his head. He just once he twists his neck and eats.
Very, very close.
Right. Yeah, you're walking down. You're walking down the
Very
street. Do
close.
you eat from the side or from the middle? Yeah, from the side. You're going to see an interesting case in a minute about this circumstance. So that's one way we learned it. Some people say no, the whole tradition of this argument of Rav and Shmuel was not originally about the Mishnah, but we brought the Mishnah into it. Rav Omar Chayevitz, Rav said that what? When it turned to the side and ate, Rav said the halacha is that you have to pay because it's Karen and it's weird. Shmuel Omar Patur, Shmuel said it's not weird and you're exempt. It's just like eating in public domain. Then we first brought, they weren't explaining the Mishnah, they were just explaining the case. Shmuel. So then we asked the kasha to Shmuel from the Mishnah that when does the animal pay when it actually damaged? What's the case according to you if it's not turning? The answer is where Shmuel answered could go on the shabkal rechava. It's where it abandoned in the middle of the street and went and walked over and ate completely to the side. That is weird. Masi Rav Nachman by Yitzchak. Rav Nachman by Yitzchak says 1 second. How can Rav say that when the animal turns to the side it has to pay? That's weird and it's Karen. Didn't we learn later in the Mishnah? We said when we tried to give an example, we said, listen, if the animal eats from the doorway of the store, it pays what it benefited, i.e., it's exempt. When you eat from the doorway of the store, you're exempt for damages. Okay, Shita the Mechazer said the only case could be what's the case of eating from the doorway? It turns from the middle. It turns its head from the middle of the road and eats from the side where the door to the store is. Okay. Nevertheless, we said Masha Nenes. But what do you mean? You don't pay what you damage. You only pay the free meal. You're exempt. Masha Nenes in what it benefit? Yes, Masha Zik alone. Okay, so now Kushiatsuma to Rav. Okay, so who mostly lo Rav Nachman asked the kasha, who mostly lo, and he answered it himself. We didn't need anybody else to answer. Okay, who mostly lo mufarik lo. Pardon me. He asked the kasha and he answered the kasha. Why? Now look at your picture in Rashi. You see the picture? Let's take a look. I'm gonna look at the picture, please, and imagine the animal walking. You see that big? You see the big square and the skinny and then the skinny path and the skinny street. So imagine he's walking from the left side. Imagine he's directly at the middle of the back wall. He's walking from the left side. Okay, not from the middle. Pardon me. I'll say it a little differently. He's walking from the back wall, exactly opposite the top wall of the skinny place. So what's happening? Now he walks, when he comes to the skinny road, directly to his left is the entrance to the store. You see what's happening? Now, why is that? Why is it not? He doesn't have to do anything special. Why is that? Because let's say, look the other way. I'll explain what I mean. Go the other way. Let's say he's coming down the skinny road from the right side, right? He's coming down the middle of the road. Then to eat from the entrance to the store on the right, you see what I'm saying? He'd have to turn his head. But if he's walking from the fat place, he's far away from the sides of the fat place. And the second he gets to the skinny place, the left wall is what? Is right there. Is right there. You understand? So therefore, the left wall is right there. So therefore, what? It's not okay. And so now I'll explain what I mean. And since the left wall is right there, is nothing weird about it because it's normal. He's not doing anything strange. He's walking right there. That's how he enters the skinny place. So what is it? It's eating in the public domain. Right. Ironically, in this case, eating from the side is normal. Even though normally when you walk down the middle of the street and you turn your head for Rav, that is strange. But here, the second he enters, he's there. So he's not doing anything strange. Incredible. So Rav says that case is where he's walking from the fat place into the skinny place. And in this case, the side is right there. There's nothing strange about it. Let's read the words. The Karen Zavitz, it's talking about the kind of a Karen Zavitz, talking about a corner. And like I told you, since when he comes in from the fat place to the skinny place, that store entrance on the corner is right there. That's normal in that particular case. Yeah.
Maybe it's on the right side.
Maybe it's on
the right side.
What?
Maybe it's on the right side.
No, so I'm telling you, that's what Rashi explains. It's on the left. It's where I told you. Yeah, it's where I told you. Yeah.
It's like a restaurant that sets up tables on the side. So
no.
You're walking along on this.
I see.
No, but in this case, but this is not because of, it's not because of the setup of the restaurant. It's because of his orientation coming from the fat place to the skinny place. Yeah, normally he'd be where? In the middle of the skinny place, but he's not. He enters the skinny place on the side. You see what's happening?
It's like shopping centers where there's an Israeli kiosk in the middle of the path.
No. I'm trying to say it's not a special building of the rest of the store.
No, it's
an orientation. When you come from a when you come from a place where the walls are over there, you end up here. No, let's say a normal thing, you usually walk down the middle. When I'm in a skinny place, I'm in the middle. But when the fat place, the middle is I'm like 50 feet away from the side. Now, so when I all of a sudden enter the skinny place in the wrong orientation. I enter too close to the side. You understand? Because I'm coming from orientation where the sides are very far away. So in this particular case, the side, the entrance, the side is really what is like the middle for him. That's the point.
It's narrow.
Yeah. For this second, that's the picture.
They changed the picture a little.
Oh, they changed the picture?
You see here, and the Rashi, it shows in the big area here, it shows the whole entrance.
First of all, no. I have no such Rashi picture as you. I have no such. That's not there. In mine, it's here. There's no such. Somebody stuck that in. Somebody stuck that in.
Oh.
Whoever, I don't know who stuck that in. Oh. Mine had. I don't have any such place. I don't have the place for the store. It's where I'm telling you. It's right on the left. It's right on the left of the skinny place as you have to. It's right on. It's right on the corner. Just look at the top of the skinny one on the left. It's on the corner right there. That's where it is. There's nothing there. There's no picture. Right. That's the real picture. That's the real picture.
They stuck that.
Yeah, I know. They're wrong. They're wrong. So I want you to know something. I've been arguing with picture books for years. By the way.
According to this, he doesn't have to turn his
head.
So
the Oscar is going to put to your picture.
A little better. Yeah. Yeah. I want to tell you something interesting. You know, I'm a believer in visual aids if you have, but you have to do them properly. And they start to put out years ago in Eretz Yisrael, they started putting out mishnayos with pictures. So one of them upset me mightily. Mightily upset me. Mightily. Why? In the beginning of Psachim, we learn about checking the wine cellar.
Yeah,
the wine cellar. So if you look in the kids' picture books, you come in and there's you have a phalanx, you have this wall of barrels, like this. It's dead wrong. If you think of the halacha, it makes no sense. How do you come into a wine cellar? Not coming down the stairs. The top rows are the first things that you meet, not the they're not up there.
No,
The
that's why
top
you
row,
have to
yeah.
check
So
the
I was
top
so
row.
upset with them. The picture has to be coming this way. You understand? The top rows is what you encounter first, not the bottom rows.
That's
They have the
where
picture
you
of the guy.
put your sandwich down if you're taking
Yeah,
lunch.
you're gonna put your sandwich down when it's 8 feet above you.
No, well, because it wasn't 8 feet above you.
Yeah, that's my point. You're coming down the cellar stairs this way. Okay, anyway, good. Okay, very good. Okay, Rabbi, let's go a little further. We gotta make this daf. Okay, now some people learn like this. Some people say, you know what? And when it comes to turning to the side, there was never an argument between Rav and Shmuel. Everybody agrees. You turn to the side. It's strange. It's Karen, and you pay. Now, this is a famous case. We're going to have it a lot of times. We had it already before. Often, what happens sometimes for various reasons, a person would cede some of his domain to the public, okay, but almost, okay. What I mean to say,
He would allow
he allowed everybody to
Yes.
use. And so, what do we do?
Right.
If on Broadway, his has a house on Broadway. What he does is he recesses his house back from the street, and he puts the walls of his house recessed from the street. And what he does is and anybody, people, and he allows the public to enter that recessed area, the area, but he maintains the right to put his. He likes to leave his produce there. Now the produce, okay. Now, so what is the key plea? Where's the argument? Okay, the mix of the okay. When a person gives, he designates a certain portion of his own domain to the public. Okay, and now, but he puts his animal, he puts his fruit there. He puts his produce. This is the argument of Rav and Shmuel. Amar Rav said, "Lo shalom lechazeres." He says, when did you have to pay for eating in the public? Where it turns to the side and eats abnormally from the side. But when the side is that area where the guy left over to the public domain, then you'll still be exempt, okay, from damages. We'll see in a minute why, okay? Shmuel Amar says, no, even when the guy left it over, okay, what? You do have to pay. You do chayav you do have to pay. Okay, now, what's the argument? So let's say this. Now, much later, we're going to learn there's a big argument coming up, okay, about a pit that's in his domain. Let's say a guy digs a pit in his domain. He cedes his domain to the public. It's not ownerless, but he maintains the ownership of the pit. So do you say a pit has to, by definition, be ownerless or not? Okay, so let's say that's the real argument, and I want to point out like this: if you lema barber shuso, okay, comifugate. So that's the argument of Rav and Shmuel, is whether a person is obligated for damages done by a pit that he's maintained ownership. Remember, fruit is like a pit that he's maintained ownership to. It's a stumbling block. Now, what's stumbling block have to do with anything? I'll explain in a minute. Rav the Amar Pater, Rav who says what? That the owner of the animal is exempt. Kasavar barber shuso chayiv. He says what? That a pit that you own, you still have to pay. Even though it looks like a pit from the Torah has to be ownerless. No, even a pit that you own, you still have to pay. Now, if I put a damager into the public domain, there's a rule. Anybody's allowed to take it and get it out of there. You can't do that. You put a stumbling block in there, somebody could take your stuff. Forget it. They could take it. Now, same thing over there. So if you hold what? That a pit that is owned is obligated. So he's put a stumbling block that he's obligated to pay for in the public, and therefore the guy that takes it has the right. Hey, you're damaging. I'm taking your thing. Shmuel, okay, Chaya, but Shmuel says that the guy has to pay. He holds since this guy maintained the ownership of the fruit, which is with stumbling block. So therefore, what he says he has to pay. So since he's exempt from paying, so since he would not have to pay, so nobody has a right to take his fruit, and therefore the damager is obligated. Now, so we're going to say what? That Rav and Shmuel are really arguing the argument that we have later. You should know, by the way, Rav Auerbach is at Tzal. I don't want to misquote you, but he held, if a shul has aisles, you're not allowed to daven in the aisle. That's not you. That's the public's area to walk. You're not supposed to daven there. Now you know you have halachas. You know, not allowed to walk in front of people when a person's davening. It's a very strict law. You're not allowed to walk in front of people davening. He says, guys davening out, heck with him, heck with him.
So then you're allowed to.
Yeah, walk in front of him, heck with him. You can walk in front of him. What's he doing? He's encroaching the public domain. What are you doing over here? You're not supposed to be davening in the aisles. You made the aisles for people to pay pass, not for you to sit there and daven. It's not your place. Anyway, just an interesting point. Okay, good. Okay, so now watch. We have a little problem. So now we're saying that Rav and Shmuel are really arguing. Okay, the argument of Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Shmuel. We don't want that. We don't want them to be arguing the argument of Rabbi Kiva and Shmuel. Okay, don't worry. So the Gemara says, don't worry. I'll show you they're not arguing. No, he says, you're making a mistake. He says, what you're saying is not true. The argument between Rav and Shmuel is what I told you. The argument between Rav and Shmuel is what? Is whether merely turning to the side is strange or you have to walk to the side to be strange. That's the argument. Why? Rav, don't accuse me. Don't accuse me of being a person who holds, who holds that an owned obstacle is obligated. Now I could say to you, I could really hold what in general that an owned obstacle is exempt from damage. If it's exempt, why did the animal have a right to eat? The answer is it's different here. Why? The Amar, because he can say lav kol kaminach the makavos lepeirosach. He said you had no right to you had no right to put your produce. Yeah, you're enticing me. You're enticing my animal. You had no right to put your produce so close to the public domain. You had no right to do that and to make me and to obligate my acts, obligate me to pay. Ushmul Amar, like his answer, don't worry. Don't accuse Shmuel, of being the person who holds what that an owned obstacle is exempt. No, he says. He said, really, what an owned obstacle does have to pay. If that's true, then the damager shouldn't have to pay. So he could take it away, throw it away. Why does he have to pay for it? The Bishlam and the Bor, why it makes sense why that an owned obstacle has to pay. Why has to pay? Why? Because he always can say, listen, the animal is going to fall into it. The animal doesn't see it, doesn't see the obstacle. And but when it comes to produce, we would say the animal didn't see it. Everybody sees it. He sees it, and therefore what? So therefore I can show you that you have no reason to say that that's the argument. We're back to the original argument. How much is strange? What does it take to be strange? He says, let's see another thing. Okay, but still, let's say that, if I can't say that they're repeating a Tanaic argument, let's say the Tanaim themselves argued this argument, whether turning is strange enough or you need to walk all the way to the side. Why? The Tanya, because we learned, here, we learned it, we learned it Bryce explicitly. If the animal ate from the street, it only pays what? The benefit that it got, the free meal, but it doesn't pay damages. But from the side, Zika has to pay what it damaged. Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda hold what? You pay what on the side you pay. Okay? Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Elazar, but Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Elazar say what? Ain't darka lechol. It's not its way to eat this way. Okay? It doesn't eat this way, it walks. So what I'm going to say, so one thing, it doesn't make any sense. If it says it's not its way to eat this way, but to walk, he says, then Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Elazar and Tanakama, they're saying the same thing. Both of them are saying that you have to pay. Okay, it's not normal you have to pay because what? Because it's Karen. Okay, so no. So how do I? There must be some argument. Ela mechazer sikabinayu must be that they're arguing exactly about this case where the animal turned and ate from the side. Tanakama savar what? That what? It's dafka what the Tanakama who said Tanakama said what? That on the side, it pays what it's damaged. Why? Because it's not hold what? Here, yeah. No. Yeah. Dafka when it went to the side and ate there, what has to pay because of Karen? Why? Because it's not normal to walk all the way to the side. Umachazeres, but as far as turning to the side, Nami Mishalev Smashin, then it's also only going to pay what it benefit and not what it damages. Those the Tanakama holds what that it's only Karen if you walk all the way to the side. Rabbi Yossi says no. No. Also by what? Also by turning to the side, you have to pay. What you benefit, what you damage, because it's not normal to eat that way. So I have a problem. So then I have Rav and Shmuel arguing the Tanoim. That's a big kasha to Rav and Shmuel. Gemara says, no, don't worry, I can solve it. Why? The Kuli Alma, okay, Mechazeres, okay, Ika Rav Ika Shmuel. Nah, don't worry. Those Tanoim are not taking sides like Rav and Shmuel, which is the kasha Rav and Shmuel, but rather what? Either both opinions hold like Rav that it's abnormal, or both hold like Shmuel that it's not abnormal until you go to the side. The Hacha, now be careful, the beer is the Achakam. What's the argument? The argument is how to interpret the pasuk. Up until now, we've never done different. We've always interpreted the pasuk that said what? It has to be ubir b'steach. It has to be somebody else's field, and not somebody else's field, and not the public domain. So public domain is always exempt. Now we're going to find all of a sudden an opinion that you are obligated in the public domain for eating. Whoa! Why? Take a look. Mar the Tanakama Savar. The pasuk that said, and it eats in another person's field, okay? Below Brishus Rabim. That's the exclusion of what? Someone else's field and not the public domain. So eating in the public domain is exempt, okay? So, okay, and that's what the Tanakama said. The Tanakama said, from eating from the street, okay, you only pay what you benefited, and you don't pay what you damage because it's exempt. Umar, bro, Yossi Savar, no. Ubir b'steyacher, when the pasuk said, and when you ate somebody else's field, and not when you put your produce in the damager's field and his cow ate it, that he's exempt. But really, what? But in the public domain, you do have to pay. And that's what he said. When we look at the word, when they said, one second, when he said, "Ein darka lecho el lahalech," okay, when he said what? It's not its way to eat, but to walk. What? You don't have a right to eat. You have to pay. You have to pay.
So he's learning that the field of another means not his own field.
Right. Field of another means
everything else.
Right. It means the damagee. It means the damagee put his produce into the damager's field, and the damager's cow ate it. That's exempt. But in the public domain, the damager has to pay. Whoa! The Gemara says, one second. So now, okay, so now it's unbelievable. Okay, so we're saying really what? Why? Okay, so therefore what? We have to say what? So we're defending and saying what? It's really an argument about what? It's really an argument about what's exempt from the Torah. Gemara says, one second. He says, you can't defend them that way. He says, Bereshus Hamazik. Lema Percha B'Shus my boy, get out of here. You tell me that a pasuk has to tell me that you had that a Tana has to learn from the pasuk that if Reuben put his stuff in Shimon's field and Shimon's cow eats it, they didn't have to pay. He says, wait, what are you doing in my thing? I don't need a pasuk to teach me that. That's self-evident. Remember, common sense is a Torah law. It's Torah law. I don't need Torah to teach me what's common sense. It's common sense. There's no way in the world that anybody could think that if Reuben put his stuff in the Shimon's field, the Shimon has to pay for eating it. Get out of here if there's cow eating it. Hello. So I said, now I got it. So, yeah. But now I got a kasha, which is what? One second, because I'm stuck then. I'm still stuck. Then it looks like the Tanaim are arguing Rav and Shmuel. Ella, don't worry. He says, I'll tell you still, I'll find another alternative. They're really arguing about this, what we learned earlier by Ilfa and Rav Oshia. Remember, we learned what's the law when the animal eats from another animal in the public domain. So we had two opinions. One, if it just eats from the other animals, off the other animal's back, it's already chayiv, or no, or if it stood up and ate off the other animal. But either way, we had two opinions that you're chayiv. So that opinion, that's the argument between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi or Elazar. That what? Rabbi Meir doesn't hold like Rabbi Yossi. He holds what? I don't care what. The public domain, you're exempt. I don't care if you ate off the ground. I don't care if you ate off the animal's back. I don't care if you stood up and ate off the animal's out of the animal's basket. In all those cases, the Torah says any eating in the public domain is what is exempt. I don't care what happened. But Rabbi Yossi, the second opinion holds what? They hold like Ilfa or Roshia, that at least one of those cases, eating off the back or standing up and eating off it, that you are chayiv. And that's really the argument. But the main point is what? One second. But the main point is what? So now we've shown you that the opinions of the Tanoim were not arguing the argument of Rabbi Shmuel. We defend the Rabbi Shmuel. Yes.
What do you mean eating off the other animal? What does that mean?
It means that, so we're going to argue that it's like eating, even though you're in the public domain, you're really eating from the private domain. Because you're eating off the other animal's basket, so even has the produce. So even though you're behind him, you're eating off his thing. So even though you're in the public domain, you're really eating from the private domain.
You steal an apple from a truck.
Yeah, you're eating. Okay, we're eating for the truck. Anyway, okay, good. And one more. Get ready. This is an incredible one. You know what?
Go by ten.
I can let it go. We'll be quick enough tomorrow. It's fine. We can let it go. Rabbi said that's these are big pages. Not like these are gigantic pages. You should. These are every page in the Talmud is important, and they're all famous. But certain ones are like grand centrals. These are some of them.
Now we finally get
Just
to-
turn the page. This is what's in the book.
What is this? When was this?
2001.
Get it well. Aye. Yeah. I used to tell that to people. I used to be in the old days when people have got time in Newsweek. I used to tell them you could take time in Newsweek from 10 years ago.